Thursday, September 4th edition of the Just Baseball Show. You got Aram Leighton and Ryan Finkelstein because Peter Apple's on the IL, which is great timing, though, not for Peter to be on the IL, but to have Ryan on because we got Power Rankings live on justbaseball.com, which means people get to yell at Ryan, and I get to take a part in that because this is editorial Power Rankings. So we're going to get into that in the second half of the episode. We're also going to talk about the cross-up heard across the world. That was Framber Valdez. And then maybe a little bit of Kyle Freeland and Rafael Devers drama as well. A couple injuries just to check in on, but it's going to be a very Power Rankings driven episode in the, I would say, probably second 2/3 of the episode.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be fun. Definitely interesting to do these last power rankings before we get to the playoffs. These will be our last full 30 team power rankings. So we're not going to focus too much on the bottom 10 teams that are pretty much out of it, but it is interesting to look at some of these groupings of teams that are vying for playoff positioning and how we view them right now. And then in a month, how will we kind of reframe the conversation when it's in the context of playoffs? But it's definitely one of my more favorite months to do power rankings because this is really where we get to the stretch run here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like conversations that we'll have off of it, as you mentioned, kind of like who's the best in the AL, divisions, playoff of the teams that are on the fringe of the playoffs. So excited to get into that. We'll talk a little bit about the criteria that went into it as well. And of course, if you weren't familiar, Ryan is our editor in chief at justbaseball.com. So the perfect guy to walk us through that. Before we get there, though, I got to start with the Framber Valdez thing. Everyone has kind of shared their thoughts on it, of course, and I think it's pretty consensus. And for those who haven't seen it yet, I'm sure our guy Peyton is overlaying the video right now as you're watching it on YouTube. But if you're listening on audio and you maybe missed it somehow, essentially, Framber Valdez and his catcher were pitching in a jam. Bases were loaded, and his catcher said, "Hey, why don't you step off here?" Because I think they were disagreeing on a pitch choice, and he kind of gave him the gesture, Salazar did, to step off. Framber didn't step off, and as the pitch clock was winding down, needed to throw the pitch, so he threw the pitch, and it was hit for a grand slam. Right after that, you then have a cross up, and cross ups happen, right? Where, of course, generally what that means is catcher thinks you're throwing one pitch, pitcher throws another, and sometimes catchers will wear it, right? Because if you think a curveball's coming and the pitcher thinks you called a fastball and you throw a fastball, or the pitcher throws a fastball, it's going to hit him in the chest because he's waiting for that pitch to break. Normally, the pitcher would immediately go, "Oh shit, are you okay?" Fromber in this instance immediately turned around, and walked back to the rubber like he couldn't give a shit. And that was the problem. Because even if he did it on purpose, and we would never know if he showed a shred of remorse or concern. But the fact that he didn't, and that it came on the heels of his catcher telling him to step off on a pitch disagreement, he didn't step off, he gave up the grand slam. The fact that Fromber has a history of throwing some tantrums on the mound, and again, I think at best here, he has zero just feeling for his teammate, even if it was an accident. At best, it's, wow, you don't care about drilling your teammate in the chest, even if it was an accident. At worst, he maliciously drilled his catcher in the chest.
Yeah, it's one of those things where after the game they both came out, oh, it was just a cross up here. The catcher said, "Oh, we have a great relationship. There's no issue there." But is he going to tell the media? Yeah, Framber just drilled me there. I mean, I don't think that you would get that true story, even if that is what happened. And the body language really did say all. I think it's what's interesting about it is Framber's one of those guys where while it's messed up, his control is so good that like it's not like the catcher was really at risk of getting hurt because he kind of just drills him in the chest protector. But sending a message to your teammate after, again, he was trying to help you out and get you to step off, and then you don't listen, you serve up the grand slam. It's just a bad look for Framber. Maybe when we get into the Devers situation, we can wonder who was the worst look, Kyle Freeland barking at Devers in the first inning of a game or Framber drilling his own teammate. But neither one of them looks good in these instances here.
So where are you at? Like, and I know at the end of the day, especially I appreciate, the fact that Salazar basically is just willing to say, "Hey, Cesar Salazar said, I don't know. It's no big deal. It was an accident and potentially cover for him. Do you feel like there was intent there? I just again, the thing for me is like at the best case scenario because of Framber's body language is that he didn't care that his catcher got drilled in the chest, which is a tough best case scenario for me.
It looked too intentional. Like everything about it looked intentional. The way that the way, like you said, the way he threw it and just immediately kind of turned around, the body language. Now, granted, he just served up a grand slam, so maybe he's just pissed off in
Yeah.
general. So I guess there's a little bit of plausible deniability, but at the same time, there's a reason why it went as viral as it did because it screamed like an intentional threat. It looked like he did it on purpose. It really did.
And I wonder, like, I doubt it's something that's going to completely disrupt the Astros clubhouse, but it's definitely not a great thing to have going on in September here with your ace. And this is still the trend too, like where we've had this. Sometimes Framber's amazing in the postseason, but then when he's bad, he's bad. And I just continue to question his mental makeup on the mound and whether he's able to handle these big moments. And now he's about to go hit free agency after this year and get a big deal. And that might be part of the reason why Salazar was maybe willing to cover for him, which would make him an even better teammate. But I wonder. I mean, teams are still going to pay him a lot because he's really, really good, and I've been an advocate of him being an underrated pitcher now for a long time. But you start to look at these things, and I don't know. I think he needs to throw well in the postseason and throw well down the stretch here to really maximize those earnings because I think you are getting some baggage. And just looking at the way that he kind of goes about his business, is that a guy that you want to commit maybe 7, 8 years to? Just the body language and the way he kind of goes about things alone. It's interesting. And he's probably, with the way that a lot of these pitchers have trended, Dylan Cease is an interesting case in a lot of different reasons. Like who is the guy that is most like that you would most comfortably give 6, 7 years to in this free agent class?
I don't think there's anyone I'd comfortably give 6, 7 years to be honest. I think, how many years did Burns get again? Burns got 6 years.
Burns got,
I
why do I
think he
want to
got,
say seven?
maybe it was 7, but it seemed like it took him a while to even get that length of a deal.
Oh, it was
So
six. It was six for 210.
yeah, so I don't think that my guess is Framber gets a pretty big 5 year deal. I still think he is the clear top free agent in the upcoming class. But I don't know if I would necessarily take him overseas if it was my money. Like, I know he's coming off a much better season, but I might just, bank on stuff and the fact that both of these guys have been pretty durable. I don't know. I might lean Cease, and Cease is what, a couple years younger too. But so I don't know. But Framber, he's still gonna get paid. I don't think anybody in this market's gonna get more than 5 years. I really don't.
I'm really fascinated to see how it all unfolds, but also just fascinated to see how this situation continues to unfold. Is next time Fromber goes out there, is he throwing to Salazar? Who's he throwing to, and how's that going to go? But again, I think even if he was just throwing a fit about the Grand Slam and just didn't have any compassion for his teammate after drilling him in the chest, just because he was upset about the Grand Slam and it was an accident, even then, it's just not a great look. So I thought that was very bizarre. One of the weirder things I've probably seen in all of my years of watching baseball and now covering it. But figured we had to discuss that also in that game, though. I mean, it was a Trent Grisham grand slam, by the way. I think Jazz had 2 homers as well, and it was just an onslaught by the Yankees. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Who, with that victory, we'll see what happens tonight. After we record this, but with that victory, did jump ahead of the Astros in the win column with 77. So we'll see how that factors into the power rankings. One other just kind of fun, just disruptive disagreement that we had. Kyle Freeland and Rafael Devers. But so basically, backstory here too. Really early in the game, it was like the eighth pitch of the game. Devers takes him way deep. Devers has been really hot for the Giants. He's feeling himself, and I think hitters like to admire the ball flying at cores a little bit more, and that's exactly what Devers did. I didn't see anything egregious in terms of like disrespecting him, like spiking the bat or staring at Freeland. He just took his sweet time, and Freeland took exception to that, and kind of started walking towards him as he was rounding first base, and then Devers started walking towards him, and the bench is cleared. I want your thoughts on all that, but what I did see that was interesting is the Giants teammates, Matt Chapman especially, they were very quick to come out and defend Rafael Devers, who's new to the clubhouse. Was yeah, there's a lot of conversation about what he didn't bring to the Red Sox clubhouse, at least in this instance, unless the Giants, players were just really excited for a scuffle. They seemed very eager to defend their teammate there.
Yeah, for sure. And you saw also some shots fired towards Freeland, like Logan Webb was saying. Like, I'm surprised that hasn't happened more with that guy. He's always talking a bunch on the mound. So yeah, I think it's a couple things. I mean, for one, we'll talk about the Freeland side of it as far as just the position he put his team in by getting ejected in the first inning over someone who he felt disrespected over Devers showing him up on a home run. But I think with Rafi at this point, like I'd imagine he's been embraced clearly in that clubhouse because you don't get that level of talent in San Francisco often. So I think I'd imagine when you're looking around the clubhouse now, and you got Matt Chapman and Willie Adames and Rafael Devers. We'll talk about it more when we get to the power rankings, but they got to feel like, all right, even if it's not this year, they have an ability to build a winning culture, and those guys are all locked up for a long time. So they should be building that culture within that room because those guys, could build something special over the next couple of years. So I think it's cool that they had Rafi's back, and I also didn't really think. I mean, it's hard because I think the camera, just like Rafi was staring at the ball, the camera angle was staring at the moonshot. So we didn't really get to see the pimp job that much. But I mean, it's not like we saw him do like a Jose Bautista bat flip or anything. He just kind of, took a second to admire the bomb that he hit. I don't think what Rafi did was very egregious at
No,
all.
I honestly thought the bigger story actually was the Giants just jumping out and coming to his defense. And yeah, I think Freeland, it's been several years now, just getting teed off on. It's really frustrating being on that team where they're losing almost every given night. But that said, yeah, you put your team in a really tough spot by getting tossed there. So yeah, I just think we're past that. Again, there's specific instances. If I give up a bomb and a guy's staring at me the whole time while he's walking down walking down the line, sure, that might get at me a little bit more. I could understand that. Again, I'm not a professional baseball player, so I probably can't speak to it. But at least that's how I think about it. If a guy's just admiring the ball that he hit at altitude, who cares? And I thought that was interesting there. And then I thought the web context was interesting as well, saying like, well, he's a guy that jars on the mound a little bit as well, and that's why. Funny enough, as we're talking about this, I saw a tweet come up in regards to circling back to the Framber Valdez situation, and this is from Michael Schwab, who actually does a pretty good job or a very good job on the Astros beat, and has had some good scoops on that side of things. I think he's the Icebox Insider, Politico, USA Today stuff as well. But he said, sources tell me tensions rose in the Astros clubhouse last night after the loss when players confronted Framber Valdez for his in-game actions involving Cesar Salazar. The argument escalated and coaches eventually stepped in to calm the situation. While the intent behind the pitch remains unclear, Valdez's initial refusal to address Salazar frustrated many in the clubhouse. So, unsurprising, you didn't address it on the field. Probably didn't address it in the clubhouse. I was thinking about that side of it too. Was he just going to pretend it never happened? And if that's the case, seems like it is. He's it's funny, we're talking about Devers and he was the clubhouse cancer. This is a clubhouse cancer here, if we're looking at one. And if this is all true, but I think regardless, what he's already created with this sideshow and not really owning up to it and just getting out in front of it a little bit more, I think is already kind of created more than it needed to be. So yeah, I think this might not be the end of it, and I think they might try to keep it, under wraps or whatever. But these are the kind of things that can really hurt a team down the stretch when you're going to the playoffs.
For sure. And I just this is a team that's now I wouldn't say clinging to their spot in the playoffs, but they're certainly clinging to their lead in the division with the Mariners on their heels. And you need to be at this point of the season getting behind your ace. It's a little bit hard to if there's that divide in the clubhouse. I think one thing that might be clear through all this, I would not be expecting Framber to come back to Houston in free agency. I think he's probably going to end up elsewhere. But yeah, that's interesting to hear. That's definitely it's a really bad look for Framber if the whole clubhouse is against him. Like, why aren't you showing some compassion towards your teammate?
It's going to
Um,
hurt his free agency
it's
for
rough.
sure
Yeah,
as well. a couple injuries to talk about before we get into the power ranking side of things. Roman Anthony is going to miss a little bit of time. They haven't really said exactly what the deal is yet, right? It just is like minor side discomfort, but
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was is oblique, but it says that they're going to undergo an MRI. Yeah, exits with oblique tightness. So, I mean, who knows? You are talking about a 21-year-old, so hopefully he can recover a little bit quicker. But I mean, anytime you hear oblique and you're in September, that's not a good sign, even if it is a mild oblique. I mean, that's going to be concerning. But there's, as we're recording right now, I'm not actually, what is this? I'm seeing likely to put him on the IL.
yeah.
So that's a rough look because there's still I read on Willier that they were saying I don't know if it's a hamstring for him. I think it's some lower leg injury and I'm pretty sure Alex Cora was quoted just saying that it's not getting worse, but it's not getting better on Willier. So pretty crazy because there was all that buzz about trading Jaron Duran at the deadline.
Could you
They're
imagine if
they're
they
pretty
did?
happy they held
Ooh.
on, right? I
Oh
mean,
my gosh. You didn't one because he's just been swinging it pretty well, but also, yeah, if you don't have him now, and all of a sudden, we always talk about this, these surpluses can disappear really quickly. And I think when you look at Roman, it's probably just his body talking to him. You think about 21 years old, high intensity games, obviously, and he's been, pure adrenaline, I'm sure, for the last few months, but also just sheer game outputs. He played 106 games in 2023, which was his first full pro season. He played 119 games in 2024, and he's already at about 100 and almost 40 games, if or 130 games. I believe it would be 130 games so far this year. And again, 71 of those being major league games, which are going to be a little bit more intensive without your Monday scheduled off day every single
yeah.
week. So I think some of it might just be his body being pushed to a point where he hasn't fully been before in terms of just volume of games and intensity. And this is a guy that we were just talking about, just totally changes the dynamic of the lineup because you put that guy in the leadoff spot and the power, or just even at the top of the order, the power, the OBP, even just the defensive side of things that he even brings to the table is just a solid defender out there. Like there's so many different ways where I feel like he's impacting the game, but I really feel like the lineup side of things where you're getting a young hitter who can get on base at a good clip, but also really pack a punch at the top of the order for them. Where I think without him, you kind of look and say, who is our leadoff guy? Like he really has jumped into that role and been a modern version of that. Is huge for them. So I'm hoping it's minor and they can get him back. But it's funny, like all of a sudden we were saying like, oh, they need to cut bait with Yoshida even too. They might end up needing to use Yoshida a little bit, but I'm interested to see what they do if you're going to see Justinson Garcia come back and get more regular opportunity. Do they slide now kind of back into the outfield to Don Rafaela and then plug somebody in on the infield side? That probably is more likely, but they're going to have to get creative here and fill that void, which you're never going to fully be able to fill a void of a player that is giving you a 140 WRC plus nearly as a rookie right out of the gate. But hopefully, he can be back sooner rather than later, and I imagine they're going to be cautious with him.
Well, I think this is one of those situations where even like a post deadline acquisition of Nathaniel Lau is huge for them. Just because, where's it? Is it low? I
Low,
always get
Nathaniel Lowe, Brandon Lau.
the lows and lows always confuse
It's
me.
I overthink it every time.
But 12 games so far, he's hitting well over 300. So having just another warm body at this point is huge for them. And yeah, they're gonna just have to cobble this thing together and hope again. At least as long as he's good for the playoffs, I think they'll be fine. But it's definitely a bad time for an oblique. I mean,
Yeah,
that's we'll see what ends up being, but it's definitely not the injury you want to see at this stage of the season.
no doubt. And going to another playoff contender, not as important of a player, but a player that I'm sure you guys were, Mets fans were looking forward to potentially getting back. Jesse Winker is not going to come back this season. How much were Mets fans kind of banking on him potentially coming back? And does this matter that much given the scope of the Mets lineup at this point?
I don't think it matters too much. I mean, when you have a guy that has essentially been out all year, I mean, I guess probably the first 6 weeks of the season he was healthy, but I don't think it impacts things too much, especially because Mark Vientos is swinging a good bat and Starling Marte has just been unbelievable. So I
Yeah,
think
I love it.
Yeah, worst case scenario at this point, as far as the Mets situation, if Cedric Mullins doesn't hit, I wouldn't be surprised if they're running out Jeff McNeil come playoff time back in center field and going Beatty at second, Vientos at third with Marte at DH. But they have options. You still have Ronnie Mauricio too as a guy that you can plug in wherever you want to. So they have different things they can do. And honestly, the lineup is sort of the least of my concerns with the Mets. I'm not too worried about Jesse Winker.
Yeah, I figured it was just another interesting player that you would have thought maybe could come off the bench.
Yeah, yeah.
Not shy of the big moment. Unfortunately, he goes down as well. And then the big one is Kyle Tucker, and this is probably the least severe of the players we're talking about here. But the Cubs slugger, he went deep through. I mean, he has been phenomenal over the last couple of weeks. I think once he's just been able to shake off that hand wrist issue, but now left the last game with a little bit of a calf issue. They're going to give him a day off, see where he's at, and go from there. Uh, Weird because I know last year he had a fluky like shin fracture that the Astros were really tight to their vest about, and then we found out later. But this year has also kind of been laden with injuries. It hasn't necessarily been a theme for Tucker. I want to just kind of start with Tucker's market. He's still going to get 400 plus million. I think it's inevitable, especially with the way that he's swinging it down the stretch now. But if you were in on Tucker, are you thinking about the injuries at all? The way that it's gone the last 2 years now?
When you're about to make a $400 million investment, you're definitely going to be thinking about it. It's strange. So I'm looking to see how much was this an issue, throughout his career. Is this just the last 2 years? And it pretty much has been 2021, he played 140, 2022, 150, 2023, 157 games. So I guess I wouldn't be too concerned about it. And assuming he only misses a short amount of time, he's going to clear 140 games comfortably and probably even 150 again. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but I think there'll be some pause for sure. It's definitely something that's going to be talked about, but at the end of the day, the production is just so undeniable that I don't, especially in this market. I mean, if you have a couple of teams that are really trying to make a splash this winter, who else are you making a splash with? Because
No.
if Bregman goes back to the Red Sox and Pete Alonso goes back to the Mets and Vladdy is already locked up, I mean, it's pretty much like Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, and Bo Bichette. It's like the
Yep.
top free agents in this class. So it shouldn't hurt him too much, but it's going to be mentioned. It's going to be talked about at
It's
least.
crazy with all the turbulence with you mentioned the games played. Probably shouldn't have been playing about 20 or 30 of those. And still, while having the worst stretch of his major league career there, all of that stuff, he's going to have north of a 5 WAR season here. Kyle Tucker is, and he's going to strike out as much as he walks, and he's going to be one of the better outfielders when the season's over in Major League Baseball. The one interesting thing though is they optioned Owen Casey. We talked about this, and they brought up Kevin Alcantara. Alcantara fits a role more of that fourth outfielder, whereas Casey is more of that guy that if Tucker's out, you're playing Casey because he's the left-handed power bat, and you're hoping he can just catch lightning in a bottle and be one of those rookies that jumps out of the gate. But not a guy that you want playing sporadically. Alcantara mashes lefties. Probably not a guy that you're going to play regularly because he strikes out a lot, about 30% strikeout rate in AAA, but really good defender, can play all three spots, plus in a corner, above average in center. Now, if he's going to miss some time, Tucker, that is, do we see Casey come back up? What do we see them do? I don't know. It's fascinating, but I think ultimately Tucker is going to be okay. The tough part is with Seiya Suzuki kind of clogging the DH spot. You can't run Tucker through that DH spot as much without compromising the defense a little bit. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm interested to see how they navigate this as well. But obviously, I mean, for the Cubs to be the team they need to be, Kyle Tucker is a huge part of that.
I think you probably stick Seiya in the outfield for a week or two potentially. Assuming Seiya is totally healthy, that's one thing that they can do to just keep the bats in the lineup. You'll definitely take a step back defensively, but it allows you to keep Tucker rolling. Or if it's bad enough, maybe just stick him on the IL for 10 days. Having Owen Casey up again for a couple weeks isn't the worst thing, and just make sure that Tucker's 100% for the playoffs. So I think they have good options
That's
either
the
way.
thing. I mean, going to get Willie Castro, who can play every position on the field,
That
essentially.
too.
He can even sell you, I think, a beer from the stands. He literally can do everything in the stadium. And then Turner could fill in. Carlos Santana now a good pickup to potentially put. They'll get by. But I did think it was an interesting wrinkle. We're going to get to the power rankings in a moment here. Before that, our first break. All right, Fink, here's where we just pick you apart. and I'm looking forward to the YouTube comments. I'm looking forward to everything. We have been getting some allegations of being an anti-Cubs podcast of late, and I think that's really unfair and actually makes me sad. But I think Cubs fans won't be upset with the power rankings. We're going to get to that. I know that you have kind of the ways that you want to break it down, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, the Cubs fans should not be too upset. We got the Cubs featured way down our list. We go 30 to 1, and they are right near the top. But I wanted to break this off in a way where we can talk about the power rankings, but also talk about the playoff picture at the same time. So we're starting off at number 19, which is where we had the San Francisco Giants. And we had them there because what we do on our power rankings typically, the last one we actually did was right after the trade deadline. So that was a fun power rankings because we spotlighted the trade deadline acquisitions as a way to sort of change things because the ranking we did before that was right at the All-Star break. So that was our way of saying, okay, who improved the most at the deadline? Now we're looking at August. We're looking at a combination of who had the best August, where are teams at in the standings, and then a little bit of projecting forward, who do we like the most? So we had the Giants at number 19, and then dropping down a little bit further, you get to the Diamondbacks at 16 because they had a 17 and 12 month of August. And then we have the Reds, who at the time of officially stamping our rankings, they did have the best record of the group and were the team that was just on the outside looking in when it comes to the wild card picture. My question to you for one, are those rankings wrong? And which one of those three teams would you feel the best about knocking off the Mets down the stretch here and making a surprise run at the playoffs?
So you said the Giants,
The
the
Giants, the D-backs, the Reds. Those are the three teams. I mean, the Cardinals are technically still in this race too. We had the Cardinals at 20 in our power rankings, but I just personally don't think that the Cardinals are going to be able to put it together down the stretch. The Diamondbacks, they're still under 500 right now, but again, they had a really good month of August, and now you see Zach Gallen throwing the ball well, and we just know the talent that they have. I can't discount them, and that's why we still rank them over the Giants, even though right now the Giants are, so we're recording, a game and a half above them in the standings. But those are the three teams that are just on the outside looking in. Any of them do you think can actually make a push here?
well, so talking criteria, how much did you guys weigh like the last like 2 weeks or so? Because I think that's where Giants fans are like, oh, they're 9-1 in our last 10. Uh,
So
whereas, yeah.
Yeah, that it's part of it. We look at the whole month of August is what we feature. So, in August the Giants were 14 and 14. Now, granted they haven't played better baseball, and honestly, this is one of those things too where if I was to, when I made the power rankings on Saturday, Sunday when I was really diving into it, I put them where I did, and then the Giants win a couple games, and you can kind of flip them and maybe say, oh, maybe the Giants should have been above them. To be completely honest, at this very moment, and it's funny because I think I said this on the JB show after the deadline. I think I came on and I was talking about which of these teams I like the most, and I actually backed the Giants at the time just because of the star power they have. So I don't think there's a huge gulf between these three teams. I honestly think they're really close, and it's kind of pick your poison.
It is really interesting. I would have went with the Reds, but they just continue to struggle a little bit. They had a nice little comeback win, but then they dropped the next one to the Blue Jays. I think in terms of the way the schedule is set up, the Reds are put in the best position to be able to close this gap because, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I don't think the Giants play the Mets head to head the rest of the way, right?
No.
The Reds do, and the Reds also have some interesting matchups mixed in there that I think could put them in a position to quickly just jump right back into it. But when you have the head to head, you sweep. It's hard to do, of course, but at least you can directly control your own destiny to a degree where you can get within a few games. So from that perspective, that's why I feel like the Reds can make a little bit of a run here. I like the spark that Sal Stewart can bring. I like the way that a lot of their guys have been throwing, but losing Chase Burns hurts. I look at what the Giants have been getting from Logan Webb. I know Robbie Ray, it's been ups and downs, but all of a sudden Justin Verlander's been throwing the ball well, and it's like, okay, well, now you have this offense finally together for the most part, and now you're seeing the rewards of it with Devers and Adames and of course Matt Chapman. But I still lean towards the Reds just because I think they've got that microwave component to them and they've got the matchup with the Mets. But I mean, all these teams are pretty flawed. I think Diamondbacks have the most like talent when it's all going right, but that bullpen is just there's just no way. Like I don't see how they can hold on to enough leads to make it interesting here. But I think it's close. I think the Reds could make a little bit of a push just the way the schedule lines up for them.
The Giants still have 7 against the Dodgers,
Oof.
but they also have they're beating up on the Rockies right now, and they finished their season against the Rockies. They actually have 2 series against the Cardinals too. Interestingly enough, down the stretch. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Which pitching staff would you pick right now? The Giants or the Reds? Which rotation, I should say.
Rotation wise,
Because
it's
you got
interesting.
Green and Abbott, you got Webb and Ray. I mean, I think it's pretty comparable. But
I think it is pretty comparable, but at this present moment, with the way Brady Singer has been throwing the ball of late, I think he's a big tiebreaker here. Green has been awesome since coming back. Lodolo's been good. Yeah, I didn't love the Zach Littell addition necessarily, but he hasn't been bad by any stretch with them. I mean, he's got a 3.9 ERA in his 5 starts. I think it's a little bit more well rounded, and you still have that top end impact. But with Andrew Abbott also just being a walking quality start for the most part all year, I probably lean towards the Reds, but again, I do really like where the Giants have been trending, and in the way that, especially with Verlander seeming like he's either emptying the tank for retirement or emptying the tank to prove that he could pitch another year. I don't know how you want to look at that, but I think Brady Singer is the big X factor there with the way that he's been throwing the ball over his last handful of starts, and striking out as many guys as I can remember through a stretch. I think that really pushes them over the top, and then we'll see if they can get another start out of Chase Burns before the end of the season.
yeah, that would also be a huge difference maker for them if they were able to get Burns back, and then if they made it into the playoffs, that would be even a bigger addition as far as just having the pitching to go through October. It's for me, it probably comes down to the Giants and the Reds, and honestly, if I was to do the power rankings again, maybe I bump the Giants up a little bit, but at the same time, as we move to the American League side of the wild card picture, are the Giants a better team than the Guardians, the Rays? Those were 2 teams that we ranked right above them too. So it's kind of tough looking at the AL picture though. We had the Guardians at 18, the Rays at 17. And then after we had the D-backs and the Reds, we got to Rangers, Royals at 14 and 13. So looking at the AL wild card, if a surprise team makes it, Guardians, Rays, Rangers, Royals, which of those teams stands out to you as one that can actually push for the playoffs?
I feel like every single week this changes. Where I think, oh, I'm eulogizing the Rangers. They might not even be players on the waiver wire, right? Like, and then they rip off 8-2 through 10 games. Yeah, the Royals have just they haven't had as many of the ebbs and flows, but they just keep hanging around. And you can't really quit them. And then they bring up Caglione, who I again I know was not good in the big leagues, but I still think has that microwave aspect to him. They call up Carter Jensen. They did make deadline acquisitions to make this team better, and then even the pitchers that they acquired have definitely helped them. So I can't fully quit that team. And any team with Bobby Witt Jr., who is silently going nuclear, like I just think is a team that can get pushed across the finish line there. But again, I look at the Rangers. You think, oh, Nate Eovaldi's hurt. What's going to happen now? Well, Jack Leiter's throwing the shit out of the ball. The offense is showing some signs of life, but I still think with Seager hurt and with Semien hurt, I lean towards I think the Royals maybe being able to get a little bit hot down the stretch here, the youthful energy and sparking things because 8-2 stretch. The Royals have lost 2 in a row as we're recording this, 4-6 over their last 10, and they're still only a game behind the Rangers. That might have been one of the better Rangers punches they had. We'll see. But I feel best about them. The Guardians, that team, I watch every game I watch of them. Their offense, I can't even believe that they're close to 500 sometimes. But then you see J Ram do his thing, and you see Manzardo hit a homer, and you're like, whoa, he's already pushing towards 30, homers this year. But at the same time, it's a pretty anemic offense. So I think it's Royals Rangers, and I'm curious where you line up with those two.
So yeah, I ended up putting Royals above the Rangers in the power rankings, and part of that was the Royals had a better month of August. The other part of that was losing Evaldi. But what's crazy when you look at the Rangers is just how much they've underperformed. When you look at run differential, they're plus 92. You look at the Royals, they're -7. So run differential would tell us that the Rangers are better. The expected win loss, they're 80 and 60 on expected win loss. So The Rangers have really underperformed what they should have done this season. With that said, I don't know what they put all together. The one thing too that I've noticed about the Rangers, just as we start to also look towards free agency, they are getting insane production out of their bullpen. Like every single guy in that
Yeah.
bullpen that was going through is pitching to like a low three ERA or better. So I don't know. Clearly, when it comes to the pitching side of things, they have a lot figured out, but the inconsistencies offensively and everything else, they just have really underperformed what they probably should have done this year.
And again, my biggest critique with the Royals is how top heavy that lineup can be, but they've seemingly addressed that a little bit. Mike Yastrzemski's 106 WRC plus goes a long way when you consider who they were rolling out there in the corner outfield. Excuse me, for a lot of the year. You think about what even just Carter Jensen can do in certain spots compared to some of the guys they've been rolling out there can make a big difference. But and I don't know if I can fully buy into either of these teams, which is why they're on the outside of the wild card looking in. The bullpen for the Royals has been really solid too. Estevez all of a sudden has a 2.58. You can talk about the underlying all you want. He's got 36 saves at a 2.58. Urseg is Urseg. And the rest of their setup guys and middle relief guys are hanging in the high twos, low threes. So like that's pretty much all you want to see. And then the rotation has been the rotation. I mean, there's been a little bit of Seth Lugo regression, but I mean, Cameron, Waka, Bergert has been a huge addition for them. I love like if the Rangers didn't add Merrill Kelly, I'd be a little bit more out. But now you look at DeGrom, Pat Corbin's starting to come down to earth a little bit, but DeGrom, Kelly, and Leiter, that's a pretty good three-headed monster there. But again, I go back to no Semien, no Seager. This offense is weird. I lean Royals, but I know I could end up being wrong for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's really tough to pick between those two teams. That's why we put them neck and neck in the power rankings. A lot of times, if you see two teams that are next to each other in the power rankings, it's kind of a coin flip for us, and we ultimately will just go on recent performance, and that's how we rank them. That's what gets us to 11 and 12 on our power rankings. Had the Mariners at 11, Astros at 12. Astros have a better record on the season, but they had a losing month of August, and the Mariners were a little bit better than 500, 15 and 12 compared to the Astros at 13 and 15. So, do you think that the Mariners, one, end up edging out the Astros, and two, do either of these teams fall back enough that somebody can catch them? Because I think the AL East is going to pretty comfortably have three playoff teams.
I I I just feel like the Mariners are gonna hit this hot stretch here, but every time I say that, they also let out a little bit of steam. So I I'm also interested to see if the clubhouse implodes from within. But every time you think something like that's gonna happen, then the team just ends up playing ball on the field really well, and it becomes less of a story. But I don't know. There's something about this Mariners team that I feel like the second I stop believing, that's when they're gonna just shoot into this hot streak. They're swinging it a little bit better because of the fact that you've got Julio doing his final 2 months of the season thing. Cal, who looked like he was fading, homered the other day. He's still injecting some life into his MVP candidacy, and he just looked top to bottom in that lineup. And it's like, man, they all mash now all of a sudden. I think a big concern was Bryce Miller. He's coming off of one of his better starts. You still got Wu, Kirby, Gilbert, and Castillo. And again, that bullpen is that bullpen. So I think they outlast them. I'm waiting for the Astros to hit this kind of rough patch. How many games do these two have against each other left? Because that would be really fun to monitor. I'm trying to pull up the schedule here. But
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick
what
too.
where do you lean? Again, when I just look at the roster, I feel a lot better about the Mariners and where they're at, but the Astros have just kind of been hanging out in that spot.
Yeah, so we're looking at one last series starting September 19th in Houston. So that's going to be interesting for the Mariners, right? That's going to be a huge series to go in there and show that you're not little brother. And I think that's the side. If I look at these two rosters and I look at the lineups, look at the rotations, I think that the Mariners have more talent. It's just the Astros have owned that division. And I mean, we've seen it year over year over year. I mean, 2023 when the Rangers won the World Series, they let the division slip to the Astros. So that's the only thing that would make me lean Astros is just it's the Astros. But Seattle, I think, has the better roster. And you're also, I'm wondering if September we see the Eugenio Suarez trade finally pay off. He struggled through August, but if they finally get to a point where for 2 weeks you have Cal Raleigh and Eugenio Suarez hot at the same time, I mean, you can stack up, some lopsided games with a bunch of home runs and go on a streak that carries you to the division. So they're right there right now. So I think I am leading Mariners, and that's why we had them at 11, just ahead of the Astros at 12.
They got to be better on the road, and that'll be an
Yeah.
opportunity to do it, right? I mean, on the road in Houston. I'm looking at Houston's schedule the rest of the way. They got two more against the Yankees, or one more, I guess, after we're recording this. Three at the Rangers, three at Toronto, three in Atlanta, and the Braves have been playing a little bit better. Three at home against the Rangers, then the aforementioned series against the Mariners. Three in Sacramento, which I'm sorry, like those games just turn into just slugfests and anything can happen. And then they close out with three against the Angels. So I think it is a little bit of tough sledding for this for this Astros team, and that doesn't make it any easier. And then I look at like what the Mariners have going the rest of the way. They get the coveted three games against the Rockies towards the end of the season. They do also have three against the Dodgers. That Astros series, they also have four against the Angels, three against the Cardinals, and three against the Braves. So I would say it's an easier path for the Mariners the rest of the way. And the Mariners have the better roster. The one thing the Astros do have going for them is Luis Garcia back healthy, Christian Javier back healthy, who just shoved last time out. So all of a sudden, the pitching, there's a lot more length to it. And that's helpful. And then you think about, well, if they get Jake Myers back soon, he adds a huge dynamic to them. Can they get Paredes back? If you told me they're getting Myers back, which I know they're getting Myers back, but they're getting Myers, Paredes back, and then these other guys are going to be able to throw for them, I'd feel a little bit more prompted to lean that way. But I don't know. I'm just not confident that they're going to get Paredes back. And again, I look at the lineup, and you're giving Jacob Melton at bats with an 83% ground ball rate, and like Dubon and the way Christian Walker struggled. I do lean towards the Mariners.
I do too, and I really hope it's the Mariners because you're talking about was it a 20 plus year drought. The last time they won the division was 2001. So it'd be more fun if the Mariners were the team. But I honestly think both of these teams hang on to a playoff spot. I don't think we'll see the Rangers, the Royals, the Rays, the Guardians. I don't think any of those teams will end up sneaking at the end of the day, and it'll just
Because
who
both these
knows.
teams are just too good, I think. Yeah, it's just that's the they're just better, I think, the Mariners and the Astros than the others.
And you know what? There's a good chance that they end up squaring off in that wild card round because they're not going to have whoever wins this division is going to be playing the wild card round, and there's a good chance that whoever doesn't win the division is going to be the final wild card seed. So we could be heading towards a grudge match where now you're kind of playing for home field. You're playing for home field in that series, and as you mentioned, both of these teams are much better at home. So there's a lot riding on winning the division, I think, because you have a huge leg up in that wild card round.
Yeah. And I mean, I go back to that Mariners Astros 17 inning game. Was it 17 innings? Uh,
Maybe, yeah.
it was crazy. So that would be a fun series.
It'll be a lot of fun. All right, so now we get to our top 10. And I'm going to group the Mets and the Padres together here, even though we had the Padres at number 7 with a couple of AL East teams kind of sandwiched in between. We had the Mets at 10, dropping from the 4 spot after the trade deadline because those trade deadline acquisitions the Mets made did not quite work. I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, man, just imagine if the Mets had the Phillies deadline. If instead of getting Mullins and Helsley, they got Duran and Bader, it'd be a completely different situation. But Ryan Helsley has been brutal. This bullpen is questionable because of that. And the rotation, I mean, between Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, who just kind of running out of steam. David Peterson had a rough start. So the Mets rotation is definitely a massive issue right now. But McLean is unbelievable. Jonah Tong's going to keep pitching this rotation. We still could see Brandon Sproat, Tyler McGill coming off the IL soon. So for the Mets, I'm very concerned about the rotation. For the Padres, there's key injuries kind of all over the place. Jason Adams just went down. Bogarts is out. Michael King can't stay on the mound this year. So I think both of these teams have plenty of questions that have now sort of separated them from a top 4 in this National League that I think is a tier that either of these teams could belong in. But right now at this very moment, I don't think either of them is up at that level at this time.
If Michael King is back healthy, and we'll see. Like I don't usually put one stock into that one player that much when it comes
Yeah.
to power rankings, but when you're comparing the Mets and the Padres, it really does feel like Michael King is would make it very clear and make me feel a lot more comfortable because then you pair him with Pivetta and that 1-2 punch at the top. I'm sorry, like you just feel really good about that compared to the Mets volatility there. And then yeah, the young rookies that they hedge with the way that they looked out of the gate, especially McLean. But I'd argue, a volatile Dylan Cease is kind of in the same conversation there, right? Because you can get really good, you can get really bad. Then we'll see what happens with Darvish, and then Cortez has now all of a sudden been asked to do a little bit more than I think they were even expecting. The Adam injury really hurts, and ruptured his quad tendon. That's gnarly stuff, and wishing him a speedy recovery. He's 34 years old, but the bullpen is still elite, and he was a big part of making that bullpen a super pen, and that's where it's like, okay, you could almost just go full bullpen game and dominate. And I still think they can, but he was a big part of that bridge. So it gets interesting. So then I go back to the offense. And I mean the Mets rake, where do you stand now with these offenses? Because you mentioned the deadline acquisitions. Laureano's a dog. He has been awesome since going there. O'Hearn has been good. And then Arias homered yesterday, so you probably got to bump the Padres up even further off of that. Tatis is Tatis. How do you compare these offenses?
I actually think the Mets have a significantly better offense. I mean, look at what the Mets have done.
Significant.
Yeah, look at their numbers the past month. The Mets have had the best offense in baseball. Juan Soto is on an absolute tear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy because of all the talk about Soto this season, and he statistically might put up the best season in Mets history. I mean, it's starting to trend that way. I think he gets a 40-40, which call me crazy, but he's 13 bags away, and it seems like he's stealing a base every game. He's starting to hit a ton of home runs, and now you have Mark Vientos looking like Vientos of last year. And once you get to that point where you can stack Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Vientos, it's a really potent top of that lineup. Brett Beatty has been hitting over 300 for like a 5, 6 week span now. So Beatty really has been strong. Jeff McNeil has had a really nice bounce back season. So even if you have to just relegate Mullins to the bench, you can stick McNeil in center field. And Marte's been great. As you and I were talking about before the record too. So having that option in the DH spot also is a nice bat for them. And Alvarez was great before he got hurt. Now, does he look like when he's playing with a fractured pinky and a torn ligament in his thumb? Who knows? But the fact that he's already playing games, he was playing, he was taking hacks 2 days after he broke his
Yeah, I
pinky.
saw
So,
that.
I mean, he's a dog, and I think he's clearly, they've told him basically, hey, it's pain tolerance. Like you're gonna get surgery on that thumb, the pinky's gonna heal, but you can play through it. So, I just think the Mets have a really deep lineup, and I think the Padres. They're kind of thin. I mean, right now you got Jose Iglesias is starting at shortstop. I
Yeah, I
just
mean, with no Bogarts, it definitely hurts. And to just add some context to what you're saying, since August 1st, the Mets have a 146 WRC plus. That's tops in baseball. That's 12 points ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers at 134, and 16 points ahead of the Toronto Blue Jays at 130. Two teams that we've been talking about just have been taking baseball by storm with their offense, over the last couple months. So the Mets are kind of in their own realm there. 10.7 F4 from position players is a full win better than the Brewers as well. And then to relate to the Padres, they've been good. They're ninth in WRC plus at 110, but that is a far cry from the Mets offense. So with the Padres being ranked ahead of the Mets, was that because of the pitching?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The Mets had the best offense in baseball, and they went 11 and 17 in August. It's
Yeah, that is
insane
concerning.
how bad their pitching has been. So that really is what it comes down to. I think in a lot of ways the Mets maybe have a higher ceiling than the Padres if they can figure out some semblance of a quality pitching staff. And if Sean Manaea locks back in and you're rolling with McLean and Tong, I mean that's not a bad playoff rotation. But they need to me it's almost you need the bullpen to be what it was supposed to be. If Ryan Helsley looks like he was advertised, and you have Tyler Rogers, you have Edwin Diaz, like all of a sudden you can do a little bit of the super bullpen thing too. The problem is they haven't had that super bullpen to cover up for the rotation, and the rotation's been awful. So when it came to the rankings, I mean, the Padres were 16 and 12 in August, the Mets were 11 and 17. We couldn't put the Mets above the Padres. But again, if we're just talking about the offenses, I think the Mets have the lineup that can really, put a lot of fear into pitching staffs in October. It's just a matter of can they hold up their end of the bargain on the pitching side of things, and that's a question that they're going to have to answer this month.
And I think it's like two completely separate things, but at the same time, like I think it would be silly to say I have confidence in these rookies and I'm going to count out you Darvish, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're willing to roll the dice on rookies, I think you got to be willing to roll the dice on you Darvish, who's like still you Darvish. And I think about he went 6 innings, a one hit ball, one run. It was a solo shot against the Dodgers. Last two outings haven't been great, but I'll die on the hill of like I'll go down with you, Darvish, in the playoffs if I have to. Like I'm fine with that, given just what he has accomplished. And again, you Darvish isn't your ace here. He's your three, maybe your fourth if you can get Michael King back. So I agree. I think just the pitching side of things, the more you dig into it, makes sense. And then the bullpen. I mean, just given where the Mets are at with the lack of length there, and then the Padres having this ridiculous length even without Jason Adam definitely makes a difference. And again, I think they could go in the playoffs and open with David Morgan, who goes 2 innings, and toss it to Wandy Peralta, and then push it across, and all of a sudden you're in the 6th inning. So they can get creative there as well.
Yeah, I think so. That's why we had the Padres ahead at number 7, and that put them also ahead of the Yankees and the Red Sox, which was tough for me, and I went back and forth on it. Ultimately, when all those teams had similar records in the month, we just sort of skewed towards last month's rankings, and we had the Red Sox and the Yankees outside of the top 10. They both slide into it now. When it comes to the American League and in the top of that league compared to the NL. I don't think that the talent is quite the same as what we have when we're going to get into the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Phillies, the Brewers. But of the 4 teams that right now I think are the best in the American League, Blue Jays, Tigers, Red Sox, Yankees. Which of those teams, if you had to pick one right now to end up in the World Series this year,
Oh,
who do you got of those 4 teams?
oh.
Yankees, Red Sox, Tigers, Blue Jays, which for our rankings purposes, number 9 for Yankees, 8 for Red Sox, and then we had the Tigers at 6, Blue Jays at 5.
So just disclaimer, I'm going to change my answer so many times before we actually get to the World Series. So don't hold it against me. Now that I've belittled my opinion that you're going to listen to, uh, it's funny because this Blue Jays team, there's just something there, man. There's something there, and I'm really starting to drink the Kool-Aid. There's the cohesiveness. I think that's really important. I think there's and you always hear from all the teams that won it all. How many times have you heard the '86 Mets probably talk about just like, oh, well, we knew we had a shot because we enjoyed playing with each other and this and that, and we navigated this and that. I feel like the Blue Jays have a really tight clubhouse from everything I understand, and then on top of that they have so many different ways where you think about what the playoffs are nowadays and how the Guardians were even able to kind of make a little bit of a run and how the Tigers approached things last year. Yeah, you have your stars that you don't pinch hit for no matter what. But when you get to the second half of the lineup, when you have matchup dependent or like just matchup edges that you can leverage, it really makes a difference. And I think about bringing in Davis Schneider against a lefty to hit for, Nathan Lucas, who probably made a diving grab earlier in the game. And then you have a Miles Straw who can maybe plug in at a certain spot. Now you have Connor Falefa who can plug in. You have Ty France who you'd love to drop in there against lefties in certain spots. Like being able to mix and match like that. I think I would have been a little bit skeptical on the pitching had they not added Shane Bieber. And now Bieber looks like Bieber. My one issue is the bullpen. And I don't
Yeah.
trust Jeff Hoffman. And then who do you trust from there? And that's where I don't know if I can fully come around. And that's where I start to look at the other teams. But then, which bullpen do you trust out of any of these teams? The Red Sox have the best closer in the game right now, I think, in Aroldis Chapman. He's on a different level. But beyond that, like, which bullpens do you trust?
Yeah, it's a really good point because I do the same thing with the Blue Jays where I look at the starting lineup, I look at their bench, I look at their rotation, and I'm just like totally buying in. And then you go, oh, wait. Who's closing out games for them? But I do love the addition of Bieber, and I think when it comes to the playoffs, I honestly wonder, does he start game one? He's made two starts so far, 11 and a third innings pitched. He has 15 strikeouts and no walks, coming off the IL for his first two starts in the big leagues this season. Adding Bieber, I think, was one of the most underrated moves of the deadline. And to me, I really like the Blue Jays because of that move. But yeah, the bullpen is definitely something that they're going to have to address. The funny thing is, I mean, the Tigers, they picked up Kyle Finnegan at the deadline, and probably a lot of us are like, oh, is that enough? And he's been unbelievable for them.
He's been
So
amazing.
the Tigers get, kind of overshadowed a lot. But we ranked them with the Blue Jays at the top, and I agree with you. I think that's the team that I lean towards. But I think there's still the case for the Tigers when you have Skubal and everything else that they can put together in a playoff series. And then the Red Sox have Crochet and Chapman, so you have kind of the anchors of the rotation of the bullpen there. I think to me, I still like those three teams more than the Yankees. I think the Yankees to
Yeah.
me are a little bit below them, but it's still the Yankees. So I mean,
So
it's still.
here's my thing with the Tigers, and I've been a Tigers truther on here for a little bit now, but I love the lineup. I'm buying more into the bullpen because of Finnegan has been way better than I would have expected, and then you have even a Troy Melton who settled into a role there for them. Will Vest has been great. Like you can talk yourself into that. Who gets the ball game too?
Yeah,
Is it Jack Flaherty? By the way,
that it,
Finnegan since being acquired by the Tigers, 14 and a third scoreless, a
yeah,
0.42 whip.
yeah.
Um,
That's the thing, and I've been watching the Mets play the Tigers this week, and Scuba wasn't in this series, and it looks like a team that's pretty beatable. That's something that they're gonna have to figure out for sure. And I don't know, like part of me says it's Morton, but you're just really banking on the back of the baseball card, Charlie Morton, to still have it in the playoffs, and he very well could, but. He's been banged around. I think half of his starts since coming over. He's had like three quality starts and I think four clunkers. So I don't know. You might be right. Maybe it's Flaherty if Flaherty can come on strong here.
so they said Roman's going to hit the IL and that's probably going to be about it. Generally, oblique is 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll see. That should potentially put Roman in a spot where he can be available for the postseason, but you're not going to just drop him right back in there because he can jack up the oblique again. If they had Roman Anthony healthy with Slayton back in the bullpen, and then just the way that Chapman's throwing right now and Whitlock as well, I could talk myself into that a little bit more, but I can't really talk myself into any of these teams because you'd also ask the same question with the Red Sox. Okay, I guess Giolito gets the ball game too. Toley or Bayo could get the ball game three. Bayo's been great this year. I think the fact that Toley's in the fold here as well, I could really talk myself into it because I think that guy's going to have that effect where he can get in there and shove. I like the way that they can go matchups against lefties and stuff like that off the bench with Ref Snyder and I mean you even look at just Romy Gonzalez and how he can fill that role. I think with the Tigers having just been there, I'll probably lean towards the Tigers. But if I just look at roster construction with a healthy Roman Anthony, I could really talk myself into the Red Sox. But
Yeah,
I'll go Tigers to get my official answer.
you know what's crazy too? I'm just trying to find like which pitching staff do I trust, and I start to look at the Yankees again. I'm like, wait a minute, if Max Fried figures it out, and you got Fried, Rodon, Heels back, Cam Schlitter. I mean,
I mean, and Schlittler's been
Schlitter.
insane.
Yeah,
If you're going to trust rookies, which rookie deserves more trust right now than Cam Schlittler?
Nolan McLean. But other than that, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not that far apart.
no, it's not. And they still have in their bullpen, if Devin Williams could ever figure it out, you got Bednar, Williams, and Weaver, not to mention
And
Duvall.
Doval.
But Duvall's also been
Yeah, I
bad
mean,
since
and
coming
this team
over.
was
But
just there too. I don't know. I don't know. This is really hard.
may,
And they made those acquisitions that I think allowed them to deploy the bench really well with Rosario to go get lefties, Caballero to kind of just be this all do it all kind of guy. Goldschmidt's going to go get lefties. Stanton has been on another level, and he's going to kick into the gear in the playoffs. Jazz has been there. Like it is a little bit of a sleeping on the Yankees here too. I I don't know. What's your official answer?
I'll stick with the power rankings and say the Blue Jays, but I think for the quote cards purpose, let's just fire it up. Who's the best team in the IL? Just a resounding, I don't
In the
know.
AL? Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
just I
I
don't know.
I don't know. And I don't, that's
Uh,
why I don't envy the power ranking side of things, because again, I could really talk myself into each of these teams. That said, I could see a quality start from several different Blue Jays guys handed over in the seventh inning, and all hell breaks loose. And that's my one concern.
that's why I think ultimately, whoever wins the National League this year very well sh could be and should be winning the World Series. I just think that there's a gulf almost between the top teams in the NL and the top teams in the AL, just more well-rounded rosters, which gets us to our top four. And honestly, eh, right now we got Brewers one, Phillies two, Cubs three, Dodgers four. And I think for the regular season, I don't really know if there's much of an argument to really change that order up, particularly with the way that the Brewers have been the best team in baseball for like 3 months, and then the way the Phillies came on after the deadline, went 18 and 11 in August. Harrison Bader has been outstanding for them. Duran really solidifying that bullpen,
Trey
but it's
Turner.
also what was that?
Trey Turner is incredible, man.
Yeah, Trey Turner clearly having his best season in a Phillies uniform. Kyle Schwarber starting to make it a little bit of an MVP race with Ohtani here. The thing that I wrote in the power rankings is I said right now we had the Dodgers at four, and yet I can't promise that when we re-rank things for the playoffs that we won't have the Dodgers right back at one, because still the fact that they can go into a playoff series with Snell, Glasnow, Ohtani. I mean, are we just going to throw out the regular season once we get to October and still say the Dodgers are the team to beat because it's the Dodgers and they just have that much talent?
I mean, that's the thing is I think when you go into a postseason series, I think that's still the team. Yeah, I wonder if you ask the Phillies, who would you rather play, the Brewers or the Dodgers? What are they going to say? Who would you rather match up against? It, it's interesting, but then when I look at who has just been the best team in the regular season, it's the Brewers. They're just so complete, and they're just so damn good. But from that perspective of like who do you want to face in the postseason? I don't think anybody wants to face the Dodgers. I think they're going to be the least given answer of who teams would want to take on. So, yeah, from that perspective, I think once the playoffs come around, the Dodgers are the last team that everybody wants to face from the star power, the Hall of Fame power. Been there, done that, all that good stuff. But at the same time, I think this is a little bit more of a beat up Dodgers team than maybe last year. And I know Mookie's been better, but he's not been the same as what we saw last year. And I think this Brewers team is different. I've said that, and I think they're clicking on all cylinders. And this is maybe as good of a shot as we've seen the Phillies have. And the thing that sucks is Wheeler going down, because that's the one thing that does kind of take that away. But in terms of everything else, like it's as I think strong of a ball club as that they've had with the trend that you want to see going into the playoffs. But I think it's no doubt right now that the Brewers are the best team in baseball.
Yeah, I think the power rankings. I like I said, I wouldn't change them at all. Like I really think that we got that right with the way that the Brewers have been playing. There was no question there, and I think the Phillies, as a regular season team, have just been more proven than the Cubs and the Dodgers this year. But as once we turn the calendar to October, I think that Wheeler injury just is gonna show up in such a big way where. I might have said the Philly. I think actually going into the season, I had the Phillies as my World Series pick. But without Zach Wheeler, I'd need to see somebody outside of Christopher Sanchez really come on down the stretch
Yeah.
to feel good about what they're going to have in a playoff rotation. Obviously, they have options, but I want to see Jesus Luzardo like string together four great starts to close off his season where you're saying, all right, Sanchez and Luzardo, let's go to war. Can Aaron Nola look good down the stretch and give you another option? If it's Sanchez, and then you're just banking on playoff Ranger showing up, and you're hoping that one of Nola, Luzardo, or maybe a Bueller coming up can figure out a playoff start. Then I wonder if the Phillies really are as dangerous in October as teams that I think have better pitching with the Brewers and potentially the Dodgers too.
So, what was the difference between the Cubs and the Dodgers for you?
Honestly, it came down to previous ranking, right? Like we had the Cubs at two last month, and we had the Dodgers at 6. They both put together pretty similar months of August, and so ultimately we went Cubs. But eh, to me, those teams are very close, and it's just a matter of who's going to get hot down the stretch and really go into the postseason with momentum. So I, it really was a coin flip for me, honestly. And so when it's a coin flip, I'll just skew towards did the Cubs do anything that I should drop them, or did the Dodgers, force the issue? And when they pretty much had the same month of August, it's all right, we'll keep, general status quo. And basically the only difference was I ended up taking the Dodgers over the Blue Jays compared to last month, which was like the one change where I just felt like it made sense to group those four teams
Yeah.
together at the top of the power rankings because I just think that those are the best teams in baseball, in my opinion, right now. It's those four teams.
Well, and the way the Dodgers are throwing right now too, I think that really gets you excited, and that staff now with Snell healthy and Glass now healthy as you alluded to, and even Kershaw giving you key innings here, and yeah, I'm always gonna buy into that bullpen. But when you look at the Cubs, the fact that they had the month that they had, despite the fact that you know they just had Tucker get going a couple weeks ago, but Pete Armstrong has been brutal for them, and they've been able to navigate around that. A guy that was playing like one of the most valuable players in baseball has been one of their worst hitters over that month span. So to be able to still get through that and navigate that, I think is indicative of the rest of the team that they've kind of built around them. And the bullpen still continues, despite I don't know fully know how, continues to mostly hold up their end of the bargain. So it's a good team, and I'm really interested to see how it shakes out in this final month here as we go into the playoffs. I definitely would rather play the Cubs than the Dodgers. I think everybody would say that, but based on how the regular season has gone, and I think where both these teams are at, I can get behind the power rankings there.
Yep. And like I said, once we get to October and we're, kind of changing up how we do these power rankings when we're ranking 12 teams, I'm right now I'd almost lean towards the Dodgers might be at the top of our power rankings or maybe just behind the Brewers because maybe we shouldn't disrespect the Brewers considering what they've done this season. But like we've already alluded to, I think put it this way, as a Mets fan, if you ask me who would I rather see in a playoff series, I think I'd rather see the Brewers over the Dodgers. But
I think a
uh,
lot of people would say the same thing, and maybe that'd be famous last words. We
yeah.
know the Brewers could put it all together this year, but we've already seen this Dodgers team put it together, and the guys that haven't been a big part of the regular season because of injury are here just in the nick of time. So I think that's going to make a big difference for them. We will have plenty more on that as we get through this final month of the season. A lot more to break down. I hope the wild card races tighten up. The American League is fun. Hope the National League, I'm sorry for your sake, but I hope it tightens up a little bit. We make it a little bit more interesting over there because the Mets are getting too comfortable, I think. And we'll have that all for you. Of course, if you're a Mets fan and you somehow don't know about Ryan's show, you can check him out on Locked On Mets. That's the best Mets podcast by a mile out there for the home stretch. And check out justbaseball.com. Ton of fun editorial written pieces going out there. Anything specific you want to plug, Ryan, before we wrap it up on the site?
We've been plugging it all show. Just the power rankings going up today. So
Yeah,
it's going to be our last power rankings before the playoffs. So that's the big piece for the week.
plenty of info and articles, though, going out every single day out there. Peter and Jack will talk to you tomorrow.